The first time anyone noticed him, he wasn't in the sky. He was standing beside a polished oak casket in a quiet funeral home in Pennsylvania, hand steady, expression calm, doing a job most people couldn't bear to look at for more than a few seconds. Before the war, he prepared the dead for burial. He understood silence. He understood finality. He understood that once something was done, it could not be undone. Years later, in the frozen winter of Europe, that same man would climb into the cockpit of a fighter aircraft and, in less than 10 minutes, send multiple enemy planes spiraling into the earth. His name was Francis S. Gabreski. And unlike many of the loud, swaggering fighter pilots Hollywood would later invent, Gabreski was quiet, methodical, almost reserved. But when the moment came, when speed, training, and instinct fused together, he became one of the most lethal pilots in the European theater of World War II. The morning that changed everything began under a pale English sky. By early 1944, Gabreski had already flown dozens of missions over occupied Europe. He belonged to the famed 56th Fighter Group, known to the Luftwaffe as Zemke's Wolf Pack. They flew the big, brutal, unapologetically powerful Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, a machine that looked too heavy to dance and yet could dive like a bullet and hit like a sledgehammer. The Thunderbolt wasn't elegant like the later Mustangs. It was massive. 8.50 caliber machine guns. Thick armor. A radial engine that could absorb punishment and still bring a pilot home. It was an aircraft built not just to fight, but to survive. Gabreski understood survival. He had grown up the son of Polish immigrants. Discipline came naturally. So did patience. While other pilots chased glory, he studied gun camera footage. He memorized enemy aircraft silhouettes. He analyzed German tactics. He knew the difference between a Messerschmitt banking to attack and one turning to disengage. By the spring of 1944, American bombers were flying deeper into Germany than ever before. The mission was simple in theory: cripple Nazi industry. The reality was something else entirely. Hundreds of bombers would form up over England and head east, heavy with explosives. And waiting for them, like wolves, were squadrons of German fighters. Among them, the deadly Messerschmitt Bf 109 and the fast-climbing Focke-Wulf Fw 190. These weren't inexperienced pilots. By 1944, many German aces had hundreds of combat hours. They knew how to tear apart bomber formations. They knew how to exploit weak escort coverage. And they knew that if they could break through the American fighters, the bombers would burn. Gabreski's job was to make sure that didn't happen. One mission over Germany began like so many others: cold air at altitude, contrails stretching across the sky, radio chatter clipped and professional. The bombers droned ahead in tight formation. The P-47s orbited above and around them, scanning. Then someone called it out. Bandits. 11 o'clock high. Dark specks against the pale horizon. Growing larger. Gabreski didn't hesitate. He pushed the nose down and felt the Thunderbolt surge forward. The P-47 was at its best in a dive, and he used gravity like a weapon. Speed built fast. 350 miles per hour. 400. The German formation hadn't fully reacted yet. He picked one target. That was always his rule. Never spray into a crowd. Choose one. Commit. The German fighter, an Fw 190, banked sharply, trying to turn inside him. Gabreski anticipated it. He cut the corner, adjusted his lead, and squeezed the trigger. 8 machine guns roared at once. Tracers stitched across the sky. The Fw 190 shuddered. Smoke poured from its engine cowling. A second later, flame erupted from the fuselage. The aircraft rolled inverted and fell away. One kill. But there was no time to watch it fall. Another Bf 109 was climbing toward the bombers. Gabreski pulled hard, felt the G-forces press him into his seat, and rolled back into position. The sky had dissolved into chaos, spirals, contrails, streaking tracers, aircraft diving and climbing in every direction. He closed again. Short burst. The Messerschmitt snapped into a spin. 2 kills in minutes. That was the rhythm of air combat in 1944. Not long duels. Not dramatic speeches. Seconds of positioning followed by explosive violence. Gabreski developed a reputation for something unusual: discipline under pressure. Many pilots, after scoring one victory, would become aggressive, too aggressive. They would chase damaged aircraft down into low altitude, away from the bomber stream, where German anti-aircraft fire and fresh fighters waited. Gabreski didn't. He climbed back up. Altitude meant life. Speed meant choice. And choice meant survival. By June 1944, as Allied forces prepared for the invasion of France, Gabreski was among the top American aces in Europe. His score climbed steadily: 10, 15, 20 aerial victories. Each one earned the same way: positioning, patience, precision. Then came D-Day. On June 6, 1944, the skies over Normandy filled with aircraft. Transport planes, gliders, bombers, fighters, thousands of them. The Luftwaffe tried to respond, but by then, American and British air superiority was overwhelming. Gabreski flew multiple missions during the invasion period. German fighters were fewer, but still dangerous. When they appeared, he struck hard and fast. By mid-1944, he had become America's leading ace in the European theater. But war has a way of punishing confidence. On July 20, 1944, Gabreski was flying a strafing mission over Germany. Low altitude, high speed, dangerous work. He made one pass at a German airfield, guns blazing. Then he decided to make another. It was a small decision. Just one more run. As he pulled out, his Thunderbolt clipped the ground. The propeller struck first. The engine failed instantly. He had seconds. He belly landed the aircraft in a field and scrambled out before German troops arrived. 4 months afterward, he would be a prisoner of war. It's easy to forget that part of the story. The capture. The wire fences. The waiting. But it matters. Because when the war ended and Gabreski returned home, he wasn't just a decorated ace. He was a man who had seen both sides of risk, when it works and when it doesn't. His final tally in Europe stood at 28 aerial victories, tying him as America's top ace in that theater. And he wasn't finished. When the Korean War erupted in 1950, Gabreski returned to combat, this time flying jet aircraft like the North American F-86 Sabre. The sky had changed. Speeds were higher. Tactics evolved. But the fundamentals remained. Altitude, energy, discipline. He would add more victories in Korea, becoming one of the few American pilots to achieve ace status in 2 different wars. But if you asked him what made the difference, what separated survival from becoming a statistic, he didn't talk about bravery. He talked about preparation. Before every mission, he studied maps. He reviewed expected enemy tactics. He briefed carefully. In combat, he didn't chase revenge or adrenaline. He chased angles. He once explained that air combat wasn't about who was braver. It was about who made fewer mistakes. That philosophy explains the day he scored multiple victories in minutes over Germany. It explains why he survived being shot down. It explains why he could transition from propeller-driven Thunderbolts to screaming jet sabers. Skill layered on preparation. Preparation layered on patience. And patience unleashed in seconds of violence. When the war in Europe ended, thousands of young American pilots returned home. Many had flown dozens of missions without ever seeing an enemy aircraft up close. Others had seen friends vanish in smoke trails across the sky. Gabreski carried both the victories and the losses. He retired from the Air Force as a colonel after decades of service. Unlike some wartime legends, he never exaggerated his record. The gun camera footage, the confirmed reports, the numbers, they spoke for themselves. 28 confirmed kills in Europe. Additional victories in Korea. Hundreds of combat missions. Years in service. But numbers don't fully explain what happened in those moments above Germany in 1944, when contrails twisted across the sky and the fate of bomber crews depended on split-second decisions. What made Gabreski exceptional wasn't rage. It was control. He knew when to dive. He knew when to climb. He knew when to fire. And perhaps most importantly, he knew when to break away. Air combat is often described as chaotic. And it is. But within that chaos, there are patterns, angles, speeds, opportunities that appear and vanish in seconds. Gabreski trained himself to see those patterns. And when the moment opened, when a German fighter turned just slightly too wide, when a dive gave him 20 extra miles per hour, when sunlight masked his approach, he acted. Not emotionally. Not recklessly, but decisively. In war, 6 seconds can define a life. A short burst of machine gun fire. A single maneuver. A single decision to attack, or not. For Francis Gabreski, those seconds accumulated into one of the most formidable combat records of the Second World War. He began as the son of immigrants. He became a master of the skies. He survived capture. He fought again in a new war. And he proved something timeless. Talent may open the door, but preparation wins the fight. If this story reminded you that history isn't just dates and numbers, but human beings making impossible decisions at impossible speeds, make sure you're subscribed. Because there are hundreds more like this. Pilots who climbed into cockpits not knowing if they would return. Men who waited years for the moment they were trained for. And when it came, they were ready.